I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them.
Continue our coverage this evening of the local state employee who was arrested and terminated from his position after several kilograms of suspected cocaine were seized. And I have a look at what happened in court today.
What if the most dangerous drug lord in the state was actually working inside the governor's office? 5:47 a.m., Springfield, Massachusetts, October 2025. The capital city was still wrapped in the cold, damp silence that only precedes a storm. Streetlights cast long shadows across the empty parking lot surrounding the Western Massachusetts Regional Office. No sirens, no flashing lights, just the low, almost invisible rumble of unmarked federal vehicles sliding into position like ghosts. Inside one of those vehicles, seasoned DEA agents checked their weapons one last time. They knew this wasn't a normal raid. This was a strike at the heart of public trust itself. At exactly 5:51 a.m., the order was given. A multi-agency strike force, comprised of over 80 federal agents from the DEA, FBI, Homeland Security Investigations, Massachusetts State Police, and the U.S. Attorney's Office, moved in with lethal precision. Tactical teams in full-body armor surrounded the state office building on Dwight Street. Snipers took positions on nearby rooftops. Every exit was blocked. Communication inside the building was jammed. This was not an arrest. This was the surgical removal of a cancer that had been growing at the highest levels of state government. And at the center of it all, Lamar Cook, Deputy Director of the Western Massachusetts Regional Office for Governor Maura Healey, a man who had sworn to serve the people of Massachusetts, a man with direct access to power, resources, and sensitive government infrastructure, a man who, according to federal investigators, allegedly chose to transform that office into a command node for a multi-million-dollar cocaine trafficking network. For months, investigators had been tracking suspicious shipments routed through legitimate delivery services to government addresses. On this fateful morning, they executed a controlled delivery that would blow the entire operation wide open. Waiting at the loading dock was a carefully packaged shipment. Inside, more than 8 kilograms of high-purity cocaine, just one piece of a much larger pipeline. But forensic analysis conducted in the following hours would reveal the terrifying scale. This network had already moved over 250 kilograms of cocaine into New England in recent months alone. Street value? Exceeding $28 million. Enough product to poison entire communities from Boston to Worcester, from Springfield to the Vermont border and beyond. This wasn't amateur smuggling. This was a professional, high-volume operation using the credibility and infrastructure of state government as cover. As agents breached the side entrances with controlled explosive charges, the building's security alarms began screaming. Security personnel who rushed into the hallways were met with federal agents shouting commands, weapons drawn. Offices were locked down one by one. Computers were seized before anyone could wipe data. Servers were disconnected live. Every corridor echoed with the sound of boots and the click of handcuffs. Lamar Cook was taken into custody inside his own office. The same office where he had allegedly coordinated shipments, laundered proceeds, and used government resources to shield his criminal enterprise. When agents searched his desk and private files, they discovered encrypted drives, ledgers with coded entries, and communication logs linking him to known mid-level cartel associates operating out of New York and Rhode Island. They also found something even more chilling: multiple illegal firearms and hundreds of rounds of ammunition, weapons that had no business being in the hands of a senior public official. Cook was immediately terminated from his position by the governor's office. The statement was short, cold, and devastating, effective immediately. But the damage had already been done. Let that sink in. A deputy director working directly under Governor Maura Healey, one of the most powerful political figures in Massachusetts, allegedly used his position to traffic quarter-ton quantities of cocaine through official government channels. Packages were arriving at state buildings. Delivery signatures were being accepted under the cloak of legitimate state business. The very system designed to protect citizens was allegedly being weaponized to destroy them. Federal prosecutors estimate the network linked to Cook had been operating for at least 18 to 24 months. In that time, they believe it funneled tens of millions of dollars in cartel money through New England's streets. Every gram that passed through this pipeline contributed to the overdose deaths, broken families, and devastated neighborhoods that Massachusetts, like the rest of America, has been fighting desperately to contain. This case is not just about drugs. It is about institutional corruption at the highest level. It is about a public servant who allegedly chose cartel profits over public service. It is about the ultimate betrayal of the public trust. As the morning unfolded, the investigation expanded at lightning speed. Forensic teams from the DEA's Special Operations Division began dissecting Cook's digital footprint. What they uncovered was staggering. Encrypted messaging apps, offshore accounts, and shell companies linked to real estate purchases in Florida and the Caribbean. Investigators now believe a significant portion of the proceeds, potentially millions of dollars, had already been laundered into legitimate businesses. Even more disturbing, intelligence suggests this operation had connections to larger South American cartels that have been flooding the United States with cocaine and fentanyl. The same deadly supply chains responsible for tens of thousands of American deaths every year may have found a willing partner inside a governor's regional office. Think about the victims: mothers who lost sons, fathers who lost daughters, young people whose futures were stolen by addiction. Every single gram that moved through this alleged network carried the potential to destroy more lives. And it was happening under the protection of state government credentials. Federal health officials estimate that in Massachusetts alone, thousands of residents struggle with substance abuse disorders directly tied to cocaine and fentanyl. In 2025, overdose deaths continue to climb. Hospitals are overwhelmed. Families are shattered. Now imagine that one of the people partially responsible for feeding that epidemic was sitting in a position of power, attending meetings, making policy recommendations, shaking hands with community leaders, while secretly moving poison through the back door. This is the level of deception that makes this case so explosive. By 9 a.m., the first wave of arrests had expanded. Cook was not acting alone. At least 7 additional individuals connected to the network were taken into custody across Massachusetts and neighboring states. Search warrants were executed at private residences, warehouses, and suspected stash houses. Agents recovered over 250 kilograms of cocaine, with more expected as the investigation deepens. Multiple vehicles modified for concealment. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash. Ledgers documenting payments and shipments. Advanced encryption devices used to communicate with cartel contacts. Cook now faces a devastating list of federal charges, including conspiracy to distribute cocaine possession with intent to distribute, enhanced by the massive quantities, use of a government facility in furtherance of drug trafficking, firearms violations, money laundering. Each count carries decades in federal prison. Prosecutors have signaled they will seek the maximum possible sentence, calling this a betrayal that strikes at the foundation of democratic governance. What makes this case even more terrifying is how long the warning signs may have been ignored. For nearly 2 years, anonymous tips had trickled into both state and federal hotlines. Concerned staff members inside the regional office reportedly noticed unusual package deliveries, late-night visits by unfamiliar individuals, and sudden lifestyle changes in Lamar Cook that far exceeded his official government salary. Yet those warnings, according to sources close to the investigation, were either dismissed as internal politics or lost in bureaucratic layers, until the DEA decided enough was enough. Operation Governor's Shadow, the classified name now being whispered in federal corridors, began as a small intelligence probe into suspicious shipping patterns to government facilities across New England. What started as routine monitoring of state buildings quickly evolved into one of the most sensitive public corruption cases in Massachusetts history. By early September 2025, agents had already intercepted 4 smaller shipments, totaling 42 kilograms of cocaine, routed to the same Dwight Street address. Each package was cleverly disguised as official state supplies or legislative materials. The return addresses were fabricated shell companies in Miami and Houston. Classic cartel tradecraft. But the real breakthrough came when a confidential informant deep inside the distribution chain agreed to cooperate. That single source provided the DEA with direct communication logs between Cook and mid-level Sinaloa cartel operatives operating through New York and Rhode Island. The messages were cold, businesslike, and terrifyingly efficient. Next load ready, same drop, use government cover. Payment confirmed, clean route. Expand volume, governor's office is safe zone. These weren't the words of a desperate street dealer. These were the words of a calculated operator who believed his position made him untouchable. As forensic accountants from the IRS Criminal Investigation Division and DEA's Financial Crimes Unit tore through Cook's financial records, a parallel empire of wealth began to emerge. In just 20 months, more than $9.4 million in cash deposits and wire transfers had moved through accounts linked to Cook and his associates. Luxury purchases included a $285,000 Mercedes G-Wagon registered under his wife's name, a waterfront condo in Cape Cod valued at $1.8 million, and multiple cryptocurrency wallets holding Bitcoin and USDT. Even more shocking, investigators discovered that Cook had allegedly used his government position to facilitate consulting contracts with fake companies that were actually fronts for laundering cartel proceeds. State funds earmarked for community outreach programs were allegedly diverted and mixed with drug money, creating a perfect financial storm. This wasn't simply drug dealing. This was state-sponsored money laundering at the highest regional level. Federal prosecutors now believe Cook's network was responsible for moving between $18 million and $25 million annually. Money that funded not only luxury lifestyles, but also further cartel operations, weapons purchases, bribery of port officials, and the deadly fentanyl precursors that continue to kill thousands of Americans every month. While politicians argue and headlines scream, real families continue to suffer the consequences. In Springfield alone, overdose deaths linked to cocaine and fentanyl mixtures have surged 47% in the past 18 months. Emergency rooms report young mothers collapsing while holding their babies. High school athletes who started with just a party line now lie cold in morgues. Entire neighborhoods live in fear as dealers, emboldened by this high-level protection, operate with near impunity. One local mother, whose 19-year-old son died from a laced cocaine overdose just weeks before the raid, told investigators she believes her child's death was indirectly supplied through the very system that was supposed to protect him. Stories like hers are multiplying across Massachusetts. Each gram that passed through Cook's alleged pipeline carried the blood of future victims. When a government official becomes a cartel partner, the body count stops being abstract statistics. It becomes personal, painful, and unforgivable. Intelligence analysts now link Cook's operation to the violent Sinaloa cartel faction led by successors of El Chapo. These are the same organizations flooding the U.S. with industrial quantities of fentanyl, the drug responsible for over 110,000 American overdose deaths in the past year alone. The route was sophisticated: cocaine processed in clandestine labs in Colombia and Mexico, shipped through major U.S. ports using corrupt logistics companies, then funneled into New England via government-adjacent addresses for reduced scrutiny. Cook allegedly provided the safe landing zone, the final critical link that allowed the cartel to bypass normal interdiction efforts. This is the nightmare scenario every federal agent fears, when the enemy no longer needs to sneak across the border because they already have allies inside the system. Governor Maura Healey's office has been thrown into chaos. Emergency press conferences, internal audits, and emergency security reviews are now underway. Opposition lawmakers are demanding a full independent investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice into every regional office in the state. Some are even calling for the governor herself to testify about what she knew and when she knew it. While there is currently no evidence of her direct involvement, the sheer proximity of Cook to her administration has created a political crisis that will dominate Massachusetts headlines for months. This scandal has also reignited national debate about government vetting processes, background checks for senior staff, and the vulnerability of public institutions to cartel infiltration. Experts warn that if it could happen in Massachusetts, it could be happening in other states right now. As of today, the investigation has expanded dramatically. More than 35 federal agents remain assigned full-time to Operation Governor's Shadow. Additional search warrants are being prepared for properties in Florida, New York, and Rhode Island. International partners in Mexico and Colombia have been alerted to pursue the upstream cartel suppliers. Cook remains in federal detention, denied bail due to flight risk and the severity of the charges. His legal team has remained silent, but sources say he is already attempting to negotiate a plea deal. A move prosecutors are likely to reject, given the scale of the betrayal. For the American public, this case represents something deeper than one corrupt official. It represents a breaking point in trust. When the people we pay with our tax dollars to lead us instead choose to poison us for profit, democracy itself is under attack. Let this case serve as a loud, unmistakable warning to anyone else currently operating in the shadows. The DEA, FBI, and Homeland Security are watching. Your government email, your official address, your position of power, none of it will protect you when the evidence becomes overwhelming. The era of too connected to touch is ending. Justice is slow, but it is relentless. And when it finally arrives at 5:51 a.m. with body armor and battering rams, there is no escape. The American people deserve a government that fights for them, not against them. We deserve officials who fear the law more than they fear losing power. We deserve transparency, accountability, and zero tolerance for anyone who would trade human lives for cash. This raid was a victory, but it must be only the first of many. We will continue to follow every development in this case, from Cook's trial to the next wave of arrests, to the final dismantling of this network. We will name names. We will expose systems. We will hold the powerful accountable. Because if we don't, the cartels win. And the American dream dies one overdose at a time. The fallout has been immediate and brutal. Governor Maura Healey's administration is facing intense scrutiny. Questions are being asked loudly. How could this happen? What other vulnerabilities exist inside state government? How many other officials might have looked the other way? This case has sent shockwaves through every level of state politics. Lawmakers from both parties are calling for independent investigations into government hiring practices, security protocols at state buildings, and oversight of regional offices. The public is furious, and rightfully so, when those we elect and appoint to lead us instead choose to enrich themselves through the suffering of their own constituents. Trust in government collapses. This is not a left or right issue. This is an American issue. This is bigger than Massachusetts. Across the United States, powerful people in positions of authority have been caught protecting or participating in the drug trade. From judges to police officials to politicians, the rot is real. The cartels don't just operate on the streets. They infiltrate institutions. They buy influence. They corrupt from within. The message from this raid must be crystal clear. No one is untouchable, not even those who walk the halls of government power. Federal authorities have promised a full, transparent investigation. Additional arrests are expected. The money trail is being followed aggressively. Every dollar, every property, every hidden account. As Lamar Cook sits in federal custody tonight, stripped of his title, his power, and his freedom, one truth stands above everything else: justice caught up. The system he allegedly exploited is now being used to dismantle his empire piece by piece. The same government buildings he used as cover are now ground zero for the investigation that will expose everyone connected to him. For the people of Massachusetts, for the families destroyed by addiction, and for every American who still believes in accountability, this is a victory. A painful, ugly, necessary victory. But it must not stop here. We need more raids, more exposure, more accountability at every level. If this story disgusts you as much as it should, if you believe public servants who traffic poison deserve the harshest punishment possible, then stand with us. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, comment below, expose them all. We will continue tracking this case as it unfolds. We will bring you the next developments, the deeper connections, and the full scale of corruption that has now been dragged into the light. Because the American people deserve the truth, And the cartels, along with anyone who helps them, deserve to feel the full weight of justice. This was only one building, one official, one morning. How many more are still operating in the shadows? We'll see you in the next file.